We are studying the book of 2 John. This is Tuesday night, by the way. If you're joining us by way of technology, we are meeting a night earlier for this week because of the holidays, give people a chance to maybe travel a bit. But we are going to resume and hopefully wind up our study tonight of 2 John. Only 13 verses in the letter, and our starting place is verse 5. 2 John is a book where John is concerned about the truth. He mentions knowing the truth in verses 1 to 3, walking in the truth, verses 4 to 6, and then remaining in the truth, verses 7 through 13. So, having said that, Adam, if you will, read for us. Tell you what, back up to verse 4, read verses 4 to 6 for us, and we'll get started.
I rejoice greatly that I found of thy children walking in truth, as we have received a commandment from the Father. And now I beseech thee, lady, not as though I wrote a new commandment unto thee, but that which we had from the beginning, that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk after his commandments. This is the commandment, that as ye have heard from the beginning, you should walk in it.
Okay, as we mentioned last Wednesday night, the elder, of course, refers to John. He's writing to the elect lady and her children. I think we mentioned there were two theories or ideas that people have as to who the elect lady would have been or was. Remember what we said about that last week? Who's the elect lady?
Well, we talked about she's just a lady that, has children, maybe a widow.
Some view the lady as literal. This was a literal woman in a congregation, and her children, her family. He's writing this letter to her. Another option, the church. This is a congregation of God's people. And it doesn't really matter which position you take as far as the truth is concerned. Either way, the point is made. But in any event, I'm taking the approach this is a literal woman. And if you want to take a different approach, that's fine too. Again, as we said, it doesn't matter. When he speaks of her children and then he speaks of her sister, to me, that just seems a bit of a stretch to say that's a congregation. Then who would the children be? Who would her sister be? Who would her children be? To me, it just makes a lot more sense. This is a woman in particular, but either way. So looking at verse, he's glad that this woman's children are faithful. Verse 4, that's certainly a reason to rejoice. And verse 5, he does beseech this woman. Another word for beseech means beg. I know some translations use the word ask. To me, beseech is a bit stronger term than ask. It means the same, but beseech carries the idea of begging or pleading, as the New King James renders that. And so he wants, as she's reading these words, pay careful attention here to what I'm about to say. I'm not writing a new commandment to you. The commandment of love, loving one another, is not a new command. It's found in the Old Testament. But never before had the world been given an example of this kind of love until who? The Lord. Jesus told the disciples, as I have loved you, love one another. Never before had the world seen that kind of love until the Lord came on the scene. And so the commandment to love one another is an old command, but it's new from the standpoint of example. Now this is a commandment, by the way. This is a commandment. How many times in verses 4 to 6 do we have the word commandment, singular and plural? How many times? Somebody count. 4 times. 4 times in how many verses? 3. So, John is really making a point here. This is not an optional issue here. This indicates authority. I'm not wishing you would do this or desiring you would do this. When I was growing up and Dad gave me the commandment to mow the yard, he didn't mean if you want to, if there's nothing better on TV, if you get around to it. When he said get out and mow the yard, that was a command. And little Wayne did what? He got out and mowed the yard. We had a push mower back then. It was a self-propelled push mower but the self-propelled part had broken. All metal gears. There was nothing plastic on that mower. That thing was heavy. And we didn't mow as much then as they mow today, but we mowed a lot with that push mower, or Wayne did. Probably one reason Wayne was skinny as a rail growing up, and Wayne probably needs to push that mower a whole lot more today. Probably be in a lot better shape. But that was a commandment. Mow the yard. He didn't say, I'm giving you a commandment. I knew what it was, though. Mow the yard. So that's what I tried to do. So John says, I'm giving a command. It's not a wish. It's not a desire. This is authority. And it should be something that one would want to do anyway, to love one another. And John elaborates in verse 6 further. He says, this is love, that we walk after his commandments. The majority of the religious world doesn't buy that. They say that going to heaven has nothing to do with commandment keeping. They say the Bible is a love letter. I've heard that more than once. The Bible is a love letter. It's not a book of rules or anything of that nature. Well, the Bible certainly is a love letter, but how do we show our love for God? By doing what he says. Exactly right. We can't send God a card. We show our love for each other. We might send a card. We might call on the phone, or might send candy or flowers to show our love, but we can't do that to God. He doesn't have a phone. We don't communicate that way. The only way we can show our love to him is when he tells us to do something, we do it by faith. We don't do it as a robot. We don't just go through the motions. We do it by faith and love. God told me to do this because I love him. I want to do it because I want to please him. This is love, that we walk after his commandments. This is the commandment that, as you've heard from the beginning, you should walk in it. You'll note, and we've noted already, that John uses repetition, repeating a lot in this very short letter. And you might wonder, why does John use so much repetition? We could answer that by asking, why does your wife keep telling you to take out the trash right in the middle of your favorite game? Because you're not hearing, right? You're not listening. We hear, but we don't listen. And that's a problem I guess we all have. Maybe like the fellow who said, I always get the last word in at my house. Yes, dear. So maybe that's the way a lot of us are. But a lot of times we hear, but we don't listen. And so repetition. Somebody said repetition is the mother of learning. The mother of learning. You'll probably be familiar with Reader's Digest. I know Dad and Mom get Reader's Digest. It's a magazine that condenses longer stories. That's why it's called a digest. And I mean, I like to read Reader's Digest, but a few years back, Reader's Digest came out with a Bible. And what they did was they called out a lot of the Bible, especially the repetition in the Bible. And that Bible, I don't think, ever really took off, and I'm sort of glad it didn't. You know, culling out a long story is one thing, but culling out parts of the Bible is a different thing entirely. If God wants something repeated, I don't have any business culling that out. And so John does a lot of repetition here, but he does it because, again, we need to learn. He talks about commandments over and again. He talks about walking in them over and again. He talks about truth again and again. Lady, I want you to know the truth. I want you to walk in the truth. And now, getting to the heart of the matter, verses 7 to 13, I want you to remain in the truth. John, in essence, is saying up to now, you've done a great job thus far living the truth, and I want you to keep it up, especially with what I'm about to say. Now, Adam, if you will read verse 7 through 11.
For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Look to yourselves that we lose not those things which we have wrought, but that we receive a full reward.
Whosoever transgresseth and abideth not in the doctrine of Christ hath not God. He that abideth in the doctrine of Christ, he hath both the Father and the Son. For if there come any unto you, and bring not this doctrine, receive him not into your house, neither bid him Godspeed. For he that biddeth him Godspeed is partaker of his evil deeds.
All right, back up to verse number 7. Thank you for reading that. John, first of all, warns about deceivers. A few? Many deceivers are entered into the world. What does it mean to deceive? What does it mean? What's that? Lie? Trick? Pull the wool over somebody's eyes? What, Miss Patty? Mislead. Absolutely, mislead. And this is intentional. This is intentional. There might be some who might not know any better, but a lot of this is intentional, and John addresses this. And the particular problem that he is addressing here is this lady was a very hospitable woman, which you would expect of Christianity, of Christians. And I think we may have talked about this last week or the week before, but the one issue was you had traveling preachers going from area to area. They would need a place to stay. And so Christians would open their homes and welcome these traveling preachers in, give them a place to stay, feed them, which was a good thing, correct? The problem was, not everybody who knocked on your door was a true representative of Christ. You don't just open your door to everybody, is what John is going to emphasize here. Evidently, she had been doing that, not intentionally, not trying to further false doctrine, obviously, but you need to not be naive or gullible into thinking that everybody who knocks on your door needs a place to stay is a true preacher. Now John says, let's just address this now. I've patted you on your back and given good news, but now let's talk about some delicate matters that we need to address here. Christian lady, there are many deceivers. You just can't trust everybody. We want to. We'd like to think the best of everybody, and we try to do that. But by the same token, you've got to have a mind trained to the truth and realize that not everybody is on the same page when it comes to the truth. Now, the particular issue that John is addressing here, we've talked about this repeatedly, the problem, the false doctrine. There were those who taught that Jesus did not come in the flesh. That is, they thought that flesh was evil, and therefore, since Christ was holy, he could not have had a fleshly body. There was no virgin birth, there was no life, and there was no sacrificial death. It really didn't happen, is what they were saying. Well, of course, that cuts out the heart of the gospel. There's no salvation apart from the death of Jesus. John knew that, and he's pointing this out to this lady, and of course to anyone today as well. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. This was a specific issue that John is addressing here. Didn't mean that was the only false teaching going around there, and certainly in our day that's not so much at the top of the list of a false teaching today. Although there are some who deny the humanity of Jesus, most would fall in the camp of denying the deity of Jesus. They say, yes, he was a man, but he certainly was not the Son of God. And both are wrong. Both positions are wrong and false doctrine. So, having said that, verse 8, look to yourselves. That is, watch out. Be alert. You cannot trust everybody who claims religion. Look to yourselves. Be diligent, that we lose not those things which we have wrought. What does that mean, wrought? Worked for. Okay. Be alert that we lose not those things which we have worked for. If we give in to this teaching that Jesus did not have a fleshly body, was not born of the virgin, did not live a life, was not crucified, if we give in to that, then we lose everything we worked for up to now. Which in essence means we ultimately lose what? Everything, including our soul, don't we? Our salvation. Now, if the doctrine of once saved, always saved is true, I mean, there's a huge question mark in my mind as to what on earth, why you would even give the warning. If this Christian lady could not be lost, no matter what, even if she built a building for false teachers to teach false doctrine, she couldn't be lost, then why did he say this? It makes no logical sense or no sense at all to me. Why worry about losing anything if you can't lose? So here's another verse that tells us that once saved, always saved is not true doctrine. Wouldn't it be a tragedy, again, to be a Christian most of one's life, and then to turn his back on the Lord right near the end of his life? It would be a tragedy at any age, but I mean, for somebody, somebody you've looked up to, you've admired, you followed the example, may have taught you in Bible class, may have been a preacher, all of a sudden just turn his back on that and lose everything. It happens, doesn't it? We had a student in the Memphis School of Preaching, not in my class, he was before me, but he eventually went into Catholicism. And that was just sort of a mind-boggling thing. I mean, you've spent 2 solid years in the Bible, and you're around people who love the truth and want to do right, and for whatever reason, one thing he said, he liked the ritual. He liked the ritual in Catholicism. Most people don't like ritual, but he said he did. But just to give up all that training and all the influence he had, and it's just sad, very sad. We don't want to lose our full reward. We get rewarded in this life, but the ultimate reward won't be until heaven. Be on guard against false teaching. Verse 9, whoever transgresses. It's easier to say transgresses than transgresseth. It's hard to say transgresseth, isn't it? But the same concept. Transgress means to go beyond. I think of transgress, I think of trespass. Somebody has a sign on the land that says no trespassing. You're not supposed to go beyond what? That sign. You may go up to the sign, stick your nose to the sign, but you better not put your nose over the sign, because you've trespassed, you've transgressed, you've gone beyond the sign. God has laid out in His Word the truth, how we are to live, what we are to believe, and how we are to act. God says, don't trespass what I've written, don't go beyond what I've written. Those who are teaching that Jesus had not come in the flesh were guilty of transgressing, just as those who say Jesus is not the Son of God are transgressing. Just as those who say there are many different roads to heaven, take your pick, they're transgressing. The Bible teaches none of that. So if I go beyond and do not abide or remain in the doctrine of Christ, the teaching of Christ, what's the result? I have not God. I have not God. Can I be saved and have not God? I cannot be saved and have not God. If I go beyond the teaching, the truth. There are those today who are what they use the term progressive. Ever heard the term progressive? In the realm of religion, they're progressive. They tell us the church is in a rut, that we need something new and something exciting. We need a fresh approach. And so the term progressive. All progression is not bad. We much had rather have the indoor plumbing than the outhouse, correct? All progression is not bad. Technology, it can be a wonderful thing. That's not bad. But progression leaving the truth is to regress and is to bring spiritual ruin. I want to stay with the truth. John says, if I remain in the doctrine of Christ, if I stay with the truth, I have the Father and the Son. I'm not denying the deity of Jesus. I'm not denying the humanity of Jesus. I'm not denying any part of the truth. I'm not adding to the truth. I'm not taking away from the truth. I respect God, His authority found in His Word, and therefore I'm going to be blessed by both God and the Son. John has said that leading up to verse 10. I said all that, Christian lady, and your children, to remind you of the importance of verse number 10. If somebody comes to your house, if there come any unto you, house, assembly, whatever, and bring not this doctrine, receive him not into your house, neither bid him God speed. Evidently, false teachers have come to this woman before. She has opened her door to them, unaware of their deceit and deception. Now, again, it's somewhat, I guess, a bit foreign to our culture. The hospitality, just about a sacred thing in that culture, even today. And of course, we need to be hospitable people too. One of the qualifications of an elder is to be given to hospitality. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2. The Hebrew writer spoke of entertaining strangers because some unawares have entertained angels. Maybe a reference to Abraham. I don't know, but that's another lesson, I guess, for another time. But again, the stress was hospitality. Rolled out the red carpet. But here, what they were not to do to false teachers who come around, receive him not into your house, neither bid him Godspeed. Now, John is not talking about a legitimate stranger. He's not talking about a traveler who's down and out, needs a place to stay, maybe needs some food. He's talking about those who were false teachers bent on destroying the church. The refusing of hospitality then was the most effective way of stopping their work. Because if they came into a town and nobody let them in and nobody fed them, they would soon what? Get out of town, right? If nobody's going to feed me and take me in, I'm not going to stay here. And if everybody everywhere would treat the false teacher like that, he'd soon be out of false teaching. Nobody's going to listen to him. Nobody's going to pay any attention to him. On the other hand, here's a false teacher. You welcome him in. You give him a place to stay. You feed him, pat him on the back, have a good day. Is he going to get the message that you disagree with him? Is he going to get the message that you're against his teaching by your doing that? Absolutely not. That's what John is saying here. Somebody said that love has a lock. Love has a lock. You agree? Isn't that what John is saying? False teachers come around, lock your door. Don't welcome them in. Now, keep in mind also in this time, the church often met where? In people's houses. Okay? So you've got a double maybe meaning here. Not only not into your house, but if the church is meeting in your house, obviously you're not going to let him come in and speak. You can imagine the damage that would do to the church. So do not provide hospitality to false teachers. And John goes further. He says, neither bid him Godspeed. Have you bid anybody Godspeed today? What on earth does it mean to bid somebody Godspeed? What's another... How is that also translated?
Wish him good luck.
Wish him good luck. A lot of translations say greeting. Don't give him a greeting. New King James, American Standard, ESV, don't give him any greeting. In other words, bringing this to 2021, I don't need to tell him, have a good day. I don't need to tell him goodbye. The word goodbye means God be with you. Do I want God to be with a false teacher? I want God to change a false teacher. John is saying, you don't need to do anything to further the work he is doing, because the work he is doing will lead people to be lost. Am I concerned about a false teacher's soul? Yes, I am. And if I can help a false teacher's soul, I want to do that. If he's teachable, she's teachable, I want to try and teach. But some of these people it's just so ingrained. I remember in Kentucky, I studied with 2 Mormon elders. I've told this before. You see the commercial on TV. They offer the Bible, and then another testament of Jesus Christ, pearl of great price, doctrine and covenant. I didn't have that, so I called the number and said I'd like to have one. I thought they'd mail it. They don't mail it. They come to your door and deliver it. And I remember one last name was Beavers. I can't remember the other last name. They wouldn't give me their first name, but they used the title elder. I'm Elder Beavers, and I forget the other elder. These were young. These were fresh out of high school kids, 19, 20-year-old kids. And I said, well, you know what? I really don't know much about Mormonism. And I said, well, let's study. Let me hear what you got to say. And they told me up front, they said, they knew I was a preacher. They said, even if you can show that we are wrong, we are not going to change. Even if you can prove we're wrong. Most people would have stopped then, but I thought, well, this will give me some experience at least. And we had a study, and again, I'm sure I didn't faze them at all, but I did learn a lot about what they believe. Some interesting things: they do not drink caffeine. I took them out and bought them a drink. They said, "Oh, we won't drink Coke or anything like that. We'll drink Sprite or tea." They have their own underwear that they wear, believe it or not. Holy underwear. I didn't see that. I didn't ask to see that. But in any event, there's some strange. They're moral people. They're good moral people in that sense, but they're just, the teaching is wrong. It's wrong. We had here a while back two young ladies came in the yard. I was out doing mowing or something. They came in the yard, and these were Mormon sisters, not elders but sisters, and they were very young. And my main concern for them, they were walking. My main concern for them was their safety. Please be careful where you walk. And they said they knew somebody in the neighborhood. They were just out walking around. But I did not wish them the best. I was not unkind to them. I did not wish them the best. I did not say good job when they told me what they were doing. And they got the message that I did not agree with them. But we cannot pat these folks on the back, because they're going to get the idea that, hey, we support them, and as he says in verse 11, if you bid him Godspeed or greet him, then you're just as guilty as he is. Isn't that what John is saying? Is partaker of his evil deeds or wicked works. If I welcome a false teacher into my home, give him a meal, and treat him like royalty, he goes to my neighbor, knocks on my neighbor's door, he can say to my neighbor, there's no reason you shouldn't let me in because your next door neighbor's a preacher. He let me in, fed me, we just had a wonderful visit. It could cost them their soul, my letting him in and treating him hospitable. That's how dangerous this could be. Now, we often ask the question, what do we do? What do we do when people from whatever religion come and knock on our door? We want to be Christians. We want to be kind. You don't want to get in a shouting match on the front porch where all the neighbors can hear. That's really not going to solve anything. Never buy their literature. and never ever give them money to get rid of them. Never do that. Never ever do that. That's just going to encourage them. I have taken their literature and I have offered them our literature. The response they usually give is, I'm not going to take that unless you come to my house. If you come to my house and knock on my door, that's the only way I'm going to take your literature. I've been to yours, now you come to mine. And you say, well, where do you live? And sometimes they won't give you their address. I once bought a Watchtower Bible. I was at Mom and Dad's and they came around, and I didn't have a Jehovah's Witness Bible, and I thought I'd like to have one just to have one. And so I bought a Bible from them. And they pestered Dad and Mom, I'm telling you, for months after that, coming by all the time. And I guess I regret buying that because they just didn't get the... I tried to tell them I just want one out of curiosity, but they just kept at it. Don't hide. Hiding in the house is not the thing to do. Peeping out the blinds, that's not the thing to do. Don't say there's nobody home. Don't do that. Don't send your kid to get rid of them. Don't do that. Don't say have a good day when they leave. Keep up the good work you're doing. God bless you. We want to be kind. We want to be polite. But we want to be firm. Take my literature. If you want to come in, we're going to study. But you're not going to do all the talking. That's the problem that I have run into with some of these visits, is they want to do all the talking, and you cannot get in the word edgewise, and you just have to say, stop, let's see what the Bible says. But some of these times it's just a no-win situation. The point is, this is false doctrine. It's serious. It's deadly serious. It will cost people their souls, and so we have no business promoting it or supporting it or encouraging it in any way. Adam, we got 2 verses. Let's read these 2 and then we'll wrap up tonight. 12 and 13.
Having many things to write unto you, I would not write with paper and ink, but I trust to come unto you and speak face to face, that our joy may be full. The children of thy elect sister greet thee. Amen.
Okay, I've got a lot more to write. I'd rather handle this how? In person. There's nothing like an in-person visit. We know that with family. I know this, FaceTiming and all this, I guess, sort of met the need, but you'd rather have your family there, right, face to face. And the same way with a visit. Just nothing like a personal visit. Just something about being there in person. We live in an age of social media, for better, for worse, good or bad. And the bad part of that is a lot of insults and put downs can be sent out just like that, and then it just spreads like wildfire. Whereas if you're talking to somebody's face, you're not as likely to what? Insult or put them down. And you just wish people would think before they hit the send button and all that. But if I'm not going to treat somebody like that face to face, I have no business treating them like that through social media. A lot more to say. Tell you what, I'm going to come and talk to you in person, and our joy will be full, and we'll be happy and be glad to see one another. 13, the children of thy elect sister greet thee. If this is literal, then this sister, probably the sister of her, may not be alive anymore, or else she would be included, or she might not have been there when the letter was written, and therefore would not be included. If sister refers to a congregation, then this would simply be a sister congregation, as we say. John stressed love one another. He stressed joy in Christianity. He stressed what it means to love God, and that means to obey God. And he says false doctrine has to be opposed. It must be opposed in a loving, kind way, but it must be opposed. We're out of time, a little bit over time, in fact. Lord willing, next Wednesday, we'll be here on Wednesday, and we'll begin our study of 3 John. And it only has 14 verses, so it'll be a short study as well. We'll go then to Jude and then to the book of Revelation. But we'll stop here for tonight.